Hello, I'm Dr. Vanita Rattan. I'm a doctor but also a cosmetic formulator specifically for skin of color. So today's video is an important one. It's on hair oil and the best and worst oils for the hair. What does it actually do? And all the myths surrounding it. It's an important video. I think in a lot of our cultures, hair oiling is it's part of the culture, is something our grandparents have done, great grandparents have done, and we pass down. There are some benefits, however, there are also some classic mistakes that are happening too, and my aim is to address it. I've gone through a number of different clinical studies, and today we're going to be talking about the importance of oil on hair quality, the best and worst oils on the market. Does oil really increase hair growth? We do talk about that a lot. Rosemary oil versus minoxidil. There's a clinical study done on this, so we're going to be discussing it today. And as you know, all my content is non-sponsored, so I don't accept money from any brand, even though they've tried. And that's very important in order to make sure that our Skin of Color family have an evidence-based channel where we can go to for reviews. As you already know, I am in the comment section for 1 hour at the launch of every single YouTube video, so you can come and ask me in real time your questions. So when you subscribe, make sure you hit that notification bell too. Don't forget to get your hands on a copy of Skin Revolution. It's a book that I've written, published by HarperCollins, and there's a lot of information here that's great for our Skin of Color family. Also, I'm on Instagram, I've got 2 accounts, and on Facebook, I'm on TikTok as well. So I look forward to seeing you there. Without further ado, let's dive right in. So what is the purpose of hair oil? So number one property of hair oil is that it's hydrophobic. We tend to prefer saturated and monosaturated oils, which penetrate better into the hair shaft than polysaturated oils. So oil actually does 2 things. Number one, it prevents swelling and contraction of the hair shaft repeatedly when your hair gets wet. So you're almost repelling water from the hair to prevent that from happening. That's important because if your hair swells 30% to 60% in diameter, it is irreversibly damaged, and more than 70% in diameter, the hair splits. So this is bad, and it tends to happen over time as we lose 18 MEA oil on the outside of our hair that protects it and makes it hydrophobic. Which happens when you're chemically straightening your hair, or you're using heat on the hair, or we're dyeing the hair, or all the other things that we do to our hair that are not good for the hair. That's what we're doing, we're stripping away that oil. So oil is brilliant for that, to make it hydrophobic. The other thing it does is it almost fills the gaps between the cuticles. So if you imagine a roof with all the tiles that are laid out like this, there's gaps in between, and when you put oil on it, it increases shine, it increases lubrication, and it prevents breakage because there's less force needed to comb the hair. We tend to say avoid butters that are solid at room temperature because actually they don't increase lubrication of the hair, and again you do need increased combing force in order to use it. So oil is better than butter, and so it needs to almost be melted at room temperature. So I'm going to go through now the different clinical studies on the different oils, how they work, how they're different, which ones you want to use and which ones you want to avoid. Starting off with mineral oil. So this has no affinity to protein in the hair. So it doesn't penetrate into the hair shaft. However, it does have a high spreadability. And so it does tend to coat the outside of the hair shaft. This helps to increase its glossiness of the hair. It means that there's less force needed, less combing force needed to brush the hair, and less split ends. Moving on to coconut oils. Now, coconut oils are brilliant actually for protein loss. It reduces protein loss in the hair, especially if you use it pre and post hair washing, because it's basically a triglyceride with lauric acid. And lauric acid has an affinity to protein. Plus, the chains tend to be straight linear chains, which means it penetrates again into the hair shaft. Moving on to sunflower oil. So sunflower oil, again, is a triglyceride, but with linoleic acid. It has a bulky structure and with double bonds, which means it doesn't penetrate into the cortex. It actually sits on the outside like mineral oil, and it has a similar function. Increases shine, reduces amount of combing force needed, and improves split ends. Moving on to argan oil. Argan oil has really swept the industry quite recently. It's rich in tocopherols and in polyphenols, so it's a very powerful antioxidant. It's extracted from the kernels of argan fruit, which has been sun-dried for a few weeks. However, the data is lacking on argan oil, and that's probably a function of that we haven't been using it for as long in the West. It's quite new to the West. And so generally you tend to get clinical studies after you've been using something for a few decades. So that's probably the reason why we don't have enough clinical data on argan oil. That's not to say it's not a very effective oil, it's just that's the way the landscape is. So far I've been discussing carrier oils. These are very different to essential oils. So these are things that to bear in mind. A carrier oil tends to be a plant-based oil, has no fragrance, and can be applied directly to the skin with no irritation. It's sourced from seeds, from kernels, and also from nuts. So the common ones that you're going to find would be things like sweet almond oil, sesame oil, jojoba oil, and they're very popular. They tend to be the carrier oil for essential oils. They tend to be much cheaper as well. Moving on to essential oils, they tend to have the characteristic smell of the plant that it came from. So they don't tend to mix essential oils. It tends to be from that one plant, like lavender, for example. It should never be applied directly to the skin. It is a skin sensitizer. It's volatile. That's why you can smell it. Anything with a smell, like fragrance, for example, is volatile. And when it's volatile, it's evaporating from the skin, which tends to dry the skin. It can sensitize the skin and generate free radicals actually in the skin, which damages collagen. So it can age the skin as well. Essential oils are highly concentrated. They are potent as well. These are things like rosemary oil, lavender oil, orange oil, sandalwood is particularly irritating to the skin, and cinnamon oil as well is terrible for the skin. So with oils generally, you want to make sure they're on the hair strand itself, not the scalp. Now this is very important because we have a microbe called Malassezia that feeds on oil that lives on the scalp and leads to dandruff. 50 to 70% of the population have dandruff. If you have dandruff, you have 10 times as much Malassezia on your scalp than someone without dandruff. So you don't want to promote Malassezia. However, the benefits really are on the hair shaft itself, increasing shine, reducing breakage, strengthening the hair itself, preventing it from looking dry and straw-like that can happen after you've dyed your hair a few times, which has definitely happened to me in the past. So there's a lot of benefit with it. However, the only part, this is all dead, your hair is dead. The only part of the hair that's alive is the bulb, which is deep in the hair follicle in the scalp, which is why the health of the skin of the scalp is absolutely crucial, and it's something we don't talk about enough. Moving on to the clinical study section of this video. So a meta-analysis of 22 studies was published in the Journal of Drugs and Dermatology in 2022. And it showed coconut oil treated brittle hair with limited evidence regarding impact on hair growth. Castor oil and argan oil both showed weaker evidence of improved hair quality and no evidence of increased hair growth. Another study was conducted on rosemary oil versus minoxidil at 2%, published in Skin Med 2015. 100 candidates were randomly assigned to two different groups for 6 months. So rosemary oil is an essential oil, and it increases microperfusion of capillaries, so more blood flow to the scalp. So at 3 months, there was no significant change in mean hair count for either group. However, at 6 months, both groups experienced an increased hair count at 6 months. However, there was increased scalp itching in both groups, and so that's scalp irritation and inflammation, which tends to mean brittle hair growth. And so you need to also take that into consideration, because there's no point increasing hair count if the hair is breaking faster. So there are different metrics that you want to assess. And so For me, even though rosemary has shown to increase hair count, I still would not recommend it because in my mind, there's no point increasing hair count if it's brittle and going to break, and now you've inflamed the scalp, irritated the scalp, which is really a vicious cycle. It takes a long time to calm down an irritated, inflamed scalp. That can go on for months or even years. Then all the hair that's growing at this point is brittle and weak. So for me, rosemary oil would still be a no. However, I did want to present the data to you and then you can make your own informed decision. Moving on to product recommendations. As you know, they're all non-sponsored and that's very important. The top hair oils that I love, I'm going to give you 5. Sweet almond oil, for example, Nascence from Amazon, you get 1 litre for £9. It's very, very cheap. It's a very good carrier oil. The next one is coconut oil, extra virgin, raw, cold pressed, I recommend. £11 for 1 litre, again, very cheap. Argan oil is about £13 for 100 mils, so it is more expensive. Jojoba oil, again from Nascence, just because it's good value for money, is £14 for 250 mils. If you are looking for a combined oil, so multi-benefit oil that's lightweight, that doesn't look greasy, and that protects your hair from heat, you can use our Dr. V Strand Strengthening Oil. I made sure that it was light so you could wear it during the day, so I'll just pop it on now so you can see. Usually before I do any filming, I do tend to use it just to get rid of any flyaways, especially my baby hairs. Since I've been drinking collagen, my hair's been growing and the baby flyaways are really hard to manage. So you can pop it on your hair and it doesn't look heavy, it doesn't look like, you know, you've got loads of oil in your hair, because that can also be tough because when you're washing it, it means that you tend to have to wash it a couple of times in order to get the oil out. So this is why I formulated this one specifically for my hair. I'm in the comment section for 1 hour at the launch of every single video, so I look forward to seeing you here. Take care, bye.